Buddy, hello Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. I'm gonna be vaping this stream for just because that's how it's gonna be. Excuse me. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna walk through this game move by move, or just about move by move, and that will be it for my first session today. So kind of on a shorter. We're on a shorter session than usual. I'm gonna review this game, this exciting game. Here we go. I had the white pieces, and it's the Scandinavian opening. This opening is, frankly, I've played it on both sides. Awesome. This opening is awesome. For Blitz Online, even more so. It's a little bit less likely that you'll play this opening as black in a tournament or in whatever your most serious setting is. But, I mean, why is it so good on Blitz? It gives black an open board, at least half open board. And whether the queen moves to a5 or to d8, it's just a more clear the path towards development. You can develop a number of pieces at any given moment, but of course only one at a time. So it leads to different configurations that are fun to play. They're not wildly outside of what could happen in tournament chess if you played this opening. And this is kind of cool. Think of it this way. With this position, what pre-move by black can answer any of white's best attempts to play for a win, and any of white's attempts. If you think about it, the move d5 as a pre-move right here before white has made any move is, I don't know how to say it, it's like an answer from the past towards the future or something. There's gigawatts all over the place, and it meets e5, it meets d4 rather classically, it meets c4, though c4 that is sometimes the trickiest one of all the 20 moves available to white at start. It meets f4 is not a very popular starting move, so we'll retract that for a moment, only shown ahead because I wanted to show it before the knight blocks it in. And it meets knight f3. All these moves are at least adequately covered by black's first move, pawn to d5. Interesting, huh? I thought that was pretty cool. You can pre-move that, and you'll most likely find yourself in one of these games and have a blast all the while. So white plays e4, d5, and yeah, book, capture. Best move, capture. My advice, capture. And then very often you'll find white moving knight to c3 to develop, while then black must spend a move immediately thereafter, allowing white to sort of develop twice. I chose my second developing move to be d4 as a center move with the pawn. It's a fine move too. Makes way for bishop to d2, and now black has to keep, at least in the back of his or their mind, the possibility of like knight to b5 with the discovered attack. The knight's covered, and then isn't the pawn on c7 in danger? And there's we go all the way to the end step here. There's a fork to be had against black's king and rook. Bishop to d2, and then here it's very important actually that black plays c6 for the reasons I showed. Knight to b5. Now with the pawn developed to c6, Black can play either queen c7 or queen d8 at a moment's notice. The pawn on c6, black can play neither of those. And in fact, on b6, there's even some trouble, perhaps. The pawn's still on c7, b6. Let's say this knight isn't here, but this is here or something. And a move like knight to d5 can make a lot of trouble for black. Not in this variation, but in some. All right. Knight to f3. Bishop g4. Now, we were talking yesterday about how valuable is a pin. How valuable is this pin on f3 through d1 and against the queen? I'd say valuable, but not extremely so, mostly because I haven't moved my light squared bishop yet. I can cover this pin with the move bishop e2, and though slightly passive, I haven't lost any time in undoing the value of that pin. Of course, as soon as I make bishop e2, the pin's off and has almost no value. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So I'd say this has a little bit of value, not a lot. I played queen e2 instead. That's a little strange. I don't recall playing that move, but that's not a totally bad move. Was I trying to get the queen into action before addressing the pin more permanently? I don't know. Queen e2 here, I don't recall playing that. There might have been some kind of... I think I was looking a little bit far down the line. Queen e2, there's a pin on the e pawn, of course, and then bishop g5 looks like, hey, here I am, and my opponent says, well, I've got that piece covered, but I don't know, maybe I was a little bit overambitious with queen e2. Pawn to e6, knight to e4. Alright, so white's going to double pawns here. They are central, and they aren't bad, but they're definitely not good either. These are not helpful doubled pawns all that much. Mostly because we're pretty sure black's going to castle kingside, and now we've sort of made that more dangerous. I guess black could castle queenside. Yeah, queenside's not bad either, but they're doubled pawns. They're not really bad for black, but they're a little bit bad for black, I'd say. Yeah. I saw the pawn grab coming, and I thought that after queen takes b2, that bishop to c3 would cause both some confusion and time to click off my opponent's clock. It looks like I gave my opponent a clear win with bishop b4. If there's a capture to be made on b4, then the rook hangs, and the bishop is pinned out of capturing the queen on b2, and even if I want to hold on to my rook, like rook d1, then there's two pieces against my bishop on c3, and only one defending. This was a sort of an oversight of mine. As chance would have it, it wasn't detected. I'm still alive in the game's way of speaking. Bishop e2. I'm not going to go over all this. This is just bad chess. It happens when you play blitz. This is not quality chess, so we're not going to go over all of these. Maybe once there seems to be a coherent plan, I'll return to talking about what the moves could be. Yeah, move 15. Black completes his development with knight to d7. It's one of the markers. Move. Some people say move 10, but I've heard it better. Move 12 and move 15 are good markers for the end of the opening. In general, not always, but in general. If you haven't completed your development after Black's 15th move, then you might want to think about not just in that one game, but developing more quickly in general. And I'm culpable at this too. Sometimes I delay developing my minor pieces. I'm working on it. I'm definitely working on it. I think anybody who's been tracking my progress will know that. And some jockeying for position here. I like the move Bishop F5. This is a gutsy move, right? Taking aim at my queen. Okay, I got that. But after I deal with the queen, it's also saying that I could push pawn to G4. And Black doesn't care, frankly. He doesn't care about that. And move back to G6. And one way to deal with it, move to, not with the queen on E3, but in some variations still, bishop to E4 and deal with that way. But for the most part, Black's not afraid of G4. Move back to perhaps F5, and then even after G4, just rook to G8. And the pawn that would capture the bishop on F5 is now pinned away from doing so. So I thought this was a gutsy move by Black. The one move you might expect otherwise is bishop H5. That kind of dooms that kind of dooms Black's bishop to being just an attacker on F3 for a long time. So I thought this was the bishop F5 was a good move by Black here. Shake things up by attacking the queen. Now there's a clear lane against, or a half open file rather, against my king at G1. Queen E3. Knight H4 is a good move, sort of going against the convention. The convention is knights on the rim are grim. Okay, but this knight can't just sit here on F3 forever, blocking the bishop from where the bishop needs to be. And also, wouldn't it be cool if we could capture on F5 and have tripled pawns on our opponents, have opponent triple pawns on our opponent's F file. Not only that, but we're giving up a short range piece for a long range piece. That would be nice. And yeah, I've done my homework. These squares are almost all covered. C2 would be an escape. And I thought of bishop takes H3. We'll see this in the game. Queen takes H3. But I think bishop C2, it feels uneasy for Black here to have a bishop this far deep into White's camp. However, I do think it's still the best move. Like bishop after bishop C2, rook C1, bishop A4, and the bishop is preventing too much queenside pawn aggression by blocking, and he's cutting into White's camp. Torch likes it as a close second, so I'd say bishop C2 is maybe the move. Bishop G6 is clearly the most conservative and preserving of the moves. It lacks a certain panache or spice that we find in bishop takes H3. All right, then we capturing back with the queen is important here. G takes H3. It looks like Torch has it worked out that White does just fine there. But why make things more complicated and dangerous than they need to be? Queen takes H3 keeps the pawn wall intact. The pawn is protected an adequate number of times, and bishop to F3 can add to that protection in a moment's notice, and in a way that's very natural. Only bishop F3, only thing that's not so great about that is where then is our knight gonna move? But that doesn't have to be solved right away. He's sitting here on the H file, has no good square to move. You play like G3 and he'll come back to G2. queen to e3. Right. So this is the idea. I'm viewing that knight and saying, viewing the knight and bishop, said these guys need to be on better squares. I kind of got caught into a bit of dalliance here in the center, but did well to bully my opponent's queen back. Bullying is bad. Bullying on a chessboard is good. With my opponent going to e7 here, the main idea is captures on e5 and captures on e5 is not good for black. Even if he's only down by one pawn, he didn't want to trade queens. To kind of half bully the queen back. I'm given notice that knight takes f5 or 22 knight takes f5 is brilliant. Makes use of the pin on the e5 pawn. So captures isn't on, and other than that, the queen is now will need to relocate to avoid capture, or at least to avoid a capture that will be devastating for black. That'll be knight g3, knight d5. Just here. I thought make use of my worst piece. Like I'm worrying about upon push to c4. Is there a way that the queen can protect dynamically? She can't. I could play knight to e4 and protect the c3 pawn, but then isn't white's king a little bit less safe than otherwise? So I said, how about you improve your worst piece? The rook on f1. What is he doing? Absolutely nothing. That's from UHF with Weird Al. But so we move rook to c1. Big whoop. What's it cost me? A rook that wasn't. Now he's at least pitching in. So yeah, all right. The initiative gets batted back to black, but rook f c1. What? It's a good move. More aggressive moves by central pawns makes sense. It's I like that in terms of quality of play. That's good. And we make a tension point out of black's backward e6 pawn. We can't win it by pressure. There's too many pieces that could defend it rather easily. Sometimes chess is more flexible than we realize. Earlier I was saying about rook to c1. But as things unfold here, the c3 pawn is no longer at risk. So now the move rook to e1 from the same rook. Yeah, it's moved twice, but in a way that those were probably still the way to go. It's just demonstrating that connected rooks back here can be quite flexible. This rook's just chilling, but he could become a force along the b file, anywhere really, but especially the b file and the d file. Pawn to b5. Simply drop the pawn back, wanting to keep I want to keep e6 as a point of pressure and tension, and respond to immediate threats as well. Because white might want to play Knight takes f5. I was looking. The tactics don't quite work out. Pawn takes f5. Queen takes f5 check. Rook takes, or queen takes e8 check. Rook takes e8. Rook takes e8 check. And it's not a big deal at that rate. We'll see something like this unveiled in how the game actually went, but with a little bit of a the only word I can think of is enticer. Black's going to entice white to try something similar to what I just showed. Here. There's different ways black can recapture, but after bishop takes d5, pawn takes d5, I think black is saying, how do you feel about a queen for 2 rooks? In the most direct way, which is through gameplay. I feel fine about it, especially in this position, guy. A little bit aggressive there, but that's the idea. I feel fine about it. Why is this compared to, here's with the numbering on. Okay, here we would have something similar, and white would give up a knight for a pawn. Not enough. That doesn't do it for me. Now, with the knight on d5, I'll give up a bishop for a knight, then go 2 rooks for my queen. But I'm feeling like this e-file is a great place to double my rooks. I was told, and I have to say I agree, that a rook for 2 rooks for a queen, or maybe sometimes it's 2 rooks for a queen and a pawn, is good for the side with the rooks when the rooks can coordinate. And other concerns, of course, but if the rooks can coordinate, if they're doubled on the e-file like these rooks, we can blast black back, into the queen side of the board. Then it's could be strong for the side with the rooks, which happens to be me this time. We'll see this in action here. King d7, rook e1. Got it. I didn't utilize the stacked rooks right away. Notice because rook takes rook to e7 check, queen takes e7, rook takes e7, king takes e7, and then is white's knight going to be able to stop the pawn on a3? Probably. Knight to c1. He'll get through to c2, but no, he'll be stopped at c2. Obviously, he'll be stopped with the pawn at a3, but I don't know, man. That's a bit tricky. So instead, I capture the pawn, spook the queen away from her post, and now with two supporters on e7, it's free for me to play rook e7. Either one, really. I chose the one on the 8th rank. Our Silicon friend wants, our Silicon friend says that the one on the 1st rank would have been better. Who would have known? Don't the one 1st rank? What about the one on the 8th rank? Yeah, all right. Now this is important because black's king is. I'm gonna try this in practice mode. Black's king. If we go to e7, it allows black to play king to d8, which is too much. It turns out white is doing much better than that. So rook e7, I think black's gonna have to ditch his queen. And this is going to, white will win. Alright, so the game as it occurred. So we're here. And what actually occurred here? Some the checkmate. Always looking for these back rank checkmates. They work better with bait. Alright. Here, black is looking for a good move. Get himself back in the game. And queen takes c3 looks nice. Wouldn't that be nice? I could even be pressuring the pawn on d4 and the rook on e1. But at that point in time, black's going to be out of the black's queen's going to be out of the way of the a pawn, and can march this forward just a couple moves. It happens. This is just how chess players are. Sometimes bait helps. Is this rook to h7? I'm counting on black maybe accepting the bait, and then I can play rook to e8. Now the trick is not the trick, but the way to do it is rook takes h7 needs to be a great move anyway. It has to be at least a good move anyway. Or else if your opponent spies not to take the bait, then you might be worse off. So, and then checkmate on the back rank here. 39 moves, and alright, do we check this? Somewhat of a not the most accurate game in the world, but it did have a nice feel about it. So more or less flat until about move 15, I'd say. Here, move 17, and then white gains an edge and nails it home. This was if some important juncture were played differently. The game played out. Checkmate was quite a bit more accurate, so that is reassuring. Hopefully I can maintain some high accuracy moving forward. Alright. That's it for this session. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more Gravity. Have a great night.